The Destroy Australia movement is at it again. Now their target is the Melbourne Cup. 158 years of tradition, a tradition of bringing us together, but almost overnight, the race that stops the nation is the race that shames the nation. Or so say the woke warriors. Think of the poor horses, they say. 5 horses have died in the last 6 cups. And shock of shocks, the ABC now reports that hundreds of unwanted horses are sent to the knackery. And so we read this on the ABC, of course. Will the Melbourne Cup be hampered by horse racing's welfare shame? And this from the far-left Guardian Australia. Professor Carol Cusack once considered the first Tuesday in November to be the one relatively unproblematic entry in Australia's triptych of national days, which includes Australia Day and Anzac Day. Let's just stop right there before we go on. You see what's happening, don't you? Australia Day to these people, well, that's obviously racist. And Anzac Day, well, that glorifies war. Now, if they can just knock off the Melbourne Cup as well, then bingo! No national day of celebration left at all. Anyway, on goes the Guardian talking about this professor who, until virtually yesterday, thought the Melbourne Cup was fine. But now, increasing concern about the welfare of retired horses and a string of deaths on the track have changed that. It's no longer relatively unproblematic, Cusack said. And if someone uses the word unproblematic, you can actually guarantee they're of the left. And suddenly celebrities who usually frock up for the Cup are panicking. Is it a good look to be there? American pop superstar Taylor Swift, she'd been booked to sing at tomorrow's Cup. Well, she was targeted by a Twitter campaign saying "Nup to the Cup" and bowed out, even though fewer than 7,000 people had signed a change.org petition telling her to stay away. A scheduling clash, she said. Well, model Megan Gale, she'd been quite happy to promote the Cup last year and even for most of this year on behalf of a sponsor. It's also the sponsor of the Cup itself. But suddenly she thinks the race has become too hot and she's pulled out as well. Not so much because the Cup is bad for horses, you understand, but bad for Megan Gale. Now, you've got to blame the ABC in part. It produced yet one of those highly excitable, inflammatory documentaries, this time about a racing industry shame.
Each year, around 8,500 horses are retired from the track, and according to the racing industry, less than 1% of them are ending up at an abattoir.
Figures don't add up. If my concerns are substantiated, then we're talking about a large number of horses that are meeting a very grisly end.
How big then is that grey area, that black hole?
The size of the black hole is in the order of at least 4,000 horses per year.
4,000 horses, allegedly, killed in an abattoir. Instead of being left to die of, well, whatever lingering disease horses die from eventually, why couldn't they be sent to an old folks' home? Just like we send humans, you know, to die of cancer and Alzheimer's or lie around gaga on chemical restraints, you know, something nice like that. Now, it's true the ABC did show footage of an abattoir worker yelling at some horses and kicking one, which is mean. Shouldn't happen. But I wonder what planet of fairy floss clouds and candy houses do these ABC reporters live in?
Aramis is just up the road. It's an abattoir, and they kill these horses for human consumption.
So where's the meat going?
It goes to various different European countries, Russia as well, and Japan.
In Australia, it's legal to send racehorses to abattoirs for slaughter. No law protects them.
Oops, should I admit at this stage that my parents came from Holland and they eat horse meat there too? But then again, is there something so special about racehorses that they can't be eaten like other horses? Or like cows or sheep or pigs? Or is that next on the menu? Compulsory vegetarianism. Is that what this is really about? Now, there is a criticism to make about the Cup. But this criticism is not to destroy it, but to save it. The Melbourne Cup became our iconic race because it told us stories about ourselves, of battler trainers and horses that came from some dusty country track to win the big one in the city. But now, what is so Melbourne or so Australian about the Cup? Where are the stories? I mean, the last 9 have been won by horses either bred or trained overseas, or both. And the closest we got to a local winner was in 2015, when the Australian-bred Prince of Penzance, trained in New Zealand, won with Australian Michelle Payne, the first female jockey to win, with brother Steve as the strapper. Now, here was finally a good story. It's such a good story that they made a film about it, added to the tradition. But tomorrow's winner, probably yet another foreign horse in a race now sponsored by foreigners too, Japan, Lexus. It's not a cup that really tells us about ourselves, unless it's about how we've sold our traditions for foreign cash, along with so much else. But my concern and the woke warriors' concern do coincide in just one point, and that's the fact that so many foreign horses, like last year's Irish Cliffs of Moher, break a leg or a shoulder and have to be euthanized. What does that show? Well, maybe that many of those foreign runners aren't conditioned to race here in our Cup. And maybe it's time again to truly make it the Melbourne Cup.